record. Okay, welcome. SLP212 to thematic units, music, apps. So let me share my screen. Okay. All right, module 12 already. Oh my goodness. So I think with Wednesday being off, I've been so disoriented this week for sure. Okay, so module 12. A couple of things that we'll talk about the assignments real quick. And I just fixed the grade check. So a couple of people messaged me, weren't able to submit something. So you should be able to submit something. I'm trying to get everything up to date. Well, let's talk about this. So this is what I'm looking for. Someone asked, do I have to sing it? I'm not really expecting you to sing it. If you want to, feel free to do so. Now, this is where I try to be kind of this type of therapist, but I have to tell you, my musical ability is about zero. So if that's your thing, if you've got some good talent, definitely play upon that. I highly recommend you try it. If that's not your thing, that's okay. Well, why I like this one is because I have done it, and really looking at and kind of what I would say our developmental base of clients we service. So a lot of times, but I mean, really even my older kids, my upper elementary age kids, so can benefit from some of this. So taking a familiar song and kind of changing the words to maybe reinforce. So right now we've been real into hand washing, obviously, and it's so cute. My daughter, she's 7. She sings this little song she learned at school, so she knows how long to wash her hands, and it helps her remember, something about scrubbing her nails, washing the back of her hands. I don't know. She sings this little like jingle. And what's nice about using a common song that everybody knows is usually they know the tune of it or kind of the cadence of how to sing it. And then you can kind of put the words in there. So there is a lot of neuroscience to support how we remember musical lyrics. So if any of you have this own epiphany, how you can remember, verses to songs pretty easily, probably songs that are very old, maybe things that you liked when you were younger. There is something to it. It accesses different parts of our brain. And so really what we're looking for, can you reinforce a basic skill? So something like, like I said, washing the hands is one, brushing your teeth, getting ready. So I know this one little boy, he sings a song to help him get ready, make sure he has his check. So an interesting thing that I learned, I don't know, I feel like I've had my fair share of students with brain tumors. So one particular student I had, and he just graduated actually, one of my favorite students I've worked with, his mom would talk about a lot of times he would kind of have to put things he had to remember into a song. So he made up a bunch of his own songs, and a few that he did recently were like Katy Perry songs. So just about checking what he has to get ready for school. So you have to check for like 3 things. He needs his iPad, he needs his phone, and a couple like folders. So he had this little jingle to a Katy Perry song to help him remember just kind of some procedures that he has to remember if he's at home by himself, things he checks on to make sure he is safe. So his mom talked about how he kind of used this song, and he learned that in his neuro rehab. So when he did speech therapy after his brain tumor, outpatient, because he didn't learn it from me, that's for sure. And his mom, we were talking about it. I said, gosh, I wish I was better at that. But he kind of learned that little trick. So what's fun about doing songs or kind of like little rhymes, so we call them like finger rhymes, is it helps kind of put that into memory. And especially if it's something you want your client to remember. So it's kind of fun. Like I said, you don't have to make it too complicated. Pick an easy song that's familiar. You do not have to sing it, but just what are some props? So let's say, you know, give me the words. What kind of strategy are you reinforcing? So we have this one group, kind of more on the severe end, really talking about like, how do we listen? You know, we turn our bodies towards the listener. We look at the faces of who's speaking. So there's one teacher kind of uses this little, you know, kind of rhyme, and it helps them remember some procedural things that they do in the classroom. So looking at like daily living skills, looking at maybe safety, you know, looking both ways before we cross the street. What else is another one? Some about, you know, brushing your hair, you know, putting your shoes and socks on, that kind of stuff. Nothing, doesn't have to be anything too complicated. And really kind of what other visuals are you using to reinforce? So obviously the song is kind of one component, but there's usually something, either sequencing task or some concepts that you're focusing on. So what are other visuals you might use to go with it, or props you might use to practice the skill that you're trying to reinforce? So it's just kind of, when you think of thematic units, it's like, okay, we're working on all these skills. Like I said, lately it's been a lot with COVID, you know, sanitizing your desk. You know, I've been trying to get a lot of the students to remember when, you know, you put things on the floor and then you put them on the table, that kind of stuff. So some other things that we maybe not focused as much on have really come to light. And there's been some cool stuff that some of the teachers have done to help, you know, students remember. And then looking at the other, so I do like it in that this kind of can build on people's personal strengths. Sorry, I'm gonna brighten. Sorry, it's so dark. I had my screen dimmed. I'm like, it's usually not quite this dark. Sorry. So apps. So the other thing people will ask too, what I'm looking for is name of the app, cost of an app, why do you think it might be useful in therapy, and then kind of read the reviews. So what I've done, obviously now we've got millions of apps to go through sometimes, but a lot of things I've been working on a little bit are, you know, some artic practice, what's something easy a person can do to support their client. There's lots of great neuro rehab apps. So, oh gosh, why can't I think? Not Lingraphia, is it Lingraphia? But there's a lot for adult rehab. So even if you look at kind of some of those apps to help, you know, it's supposed to help improve your memory, or even some of the crossword puzzles, that kind of thing. There's some great, what I would call adult neuro rehab apps that are actually really cool. I've seen some therapists really utilize them well in outpatient and inpatient. So read the reviews, see what you think. So a lot of times too, there's apps that are just for reinforcement. I use them maybe for more rewards based things. So like Toca Boca has a lot of great apps that are real basic for our, you know, our child clientele, and just are really helpful. Okay, you have to ask, you have to choose, you have to pick. So there was one, I haven't used it in a while. I think they changed it. It used to be a build a robot. I think it's now a little bit different, but you know, you got to pick the arms, you got to pick the body, you got to pick the face, you know, the different types of feet. So it's really cool that you can kind of go through kind of a set basic thing, and then they get something at the end. And then a lot of times, you know, take a picture, you know, send it to your mom or whatever it is, whatever they built. You know, it's kind of like a building app. So look at it, you know, those are readily available. Most of us have access to apps on our phone. And then we just have a read and review. So we have apps, integrating music, apps, and then a read and review summary and a grade check. So I fixed all those. So let's look at thematic units. So you'll see there's a lot of thematic based learning. Like I said, integrating music into therapy. And yes, I did used to have a sample, but the problem is I have issues with samples and that I don't want everything to look exactly how I did it. So what I have noticed, and the reason why I say that, so for you guys as students, I usually get better projects if we don't have a sample. So I'm really looking at, for you as an individual, you know, what would you come up with? And that is sometimes hard, but what I'm looking for, did you put some effort and thought into it? So I don't want it to look just like mine. Most of the time, yours are better than what I come up with most of the time. So I do like seeing original things. So you can kind of look at some, if you think about things that were common with music when you were young or that you watch repeatedly. So things like Sesame Street, Schoolhouse Rock, lots of things that are, you know, you still remember. So kind of some basic stuff too to remember. So 90% of the grammar and vocabulary should be on or slightly above the language. And repetition and structure. So really what we're looking for is something repetitive and kind of real simple. It can't be anything too complicated or it's not as useful from a therapy perspective. And then should be pervasive and consistent use of verb tense. And then really looking at kind of some of the movements. So sometimes there's little songs with some movements, hand movements and stuff. Those are pretty common too. Yeah, so if you're gonna do hand movements with one of your songs, you want to do it the way you want to have your client do it, as well as kind of encouraging what I would call, you know, integrative stuff. So if it's left hand, right hand, if it's, you know, you want your hands up, down, or whatever. So kind of think about orientation to their body if it relates to what the concept is you're reinforcing. So like some things our OT does with tying shoes. Obviously, she has them always like get down, bend, and you know, touch their shoe, even if they don't have shoelaces. She was okay. Where's our shoe? Okay, and then she'll talk about moving our hands. She does some like crossing midline stuff. So, you know, what are some modifications you can do with the song that you're teaching? Like I said, the teddy bear. I guess that's kind of an example. Okay, thematic unit. So, and I'm wondering if this was one that people couldn't see when you guys logged on, pull it up. So this is one, I'll try and fix it for you guys. So really looking at, there's a lot of evidence-based about how thematic units work in a teaching environment. What I like about using them in therapy, especially if I'm in a school-based setting, I like to coordinate with the theme. But sometimes it's really easy to kind of pick a theme and then you can really delve into different skills related to the theme. So for instance, we're doing a lot with, like I said, healthy. What's healthy? What are things to do to keep, you know, your body safe and optimal? So those are some things that, you know, we're kind of building on in the theme. So I kind of do it, talk a lot about our voice, taking care of, you know, keeping our, what I would call your voice, your your body space in the right realm, because we don't want to get too close. So we kind of work on that anyway from a speech perspective, but why it's even more important now. And then there's one other one I wanted to show you. Talking about apps. So like I said, there's a lot you can build upon with music, apps. So I just like this about some of the cautions with using apps. Obviously too much screen time, even more of a factor now that we're doing a bunch of Zoom. And then kind of finding what do you want to target, and then finding maybe the app that targets that skill. So, and just remember, we use apps as a tool, not as like a replacement. So that's the other thing that I feel like I really try to have to explain to parents is apps kind of supplement or kind of reinforce a skill. We're not really trying to have the app teach the skill. So there's some other things too. It kind of talks just about technology, video modeling for children with autism. There's a lot more even evidence-based about it. And what's nice is now, like with all the readily available, you know, videos, things like that, there's some great ones on YouTube. I think it's Model Me Kids. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. They've got some great videos. There's even more by the day. Michelle Garcia Winner has some great things. So there's some great video and video modeling you can use to help teach and reinforce a skill. So there's some good, I really like some of these apps. I just kind of like this summary of information, how to use apps. And then AugCom. So we're not really focusing too much on augmentative communication. I know you'll do that in other classes, but augmentative communication is definitely, there's a bunch of app-based, there's a bunch of readily available, you know, augmentative communication apps out there that I think are helpful, useful, a good starting place for many of our clients, for our young group and our old group. And when I say young and old, just there's a lot of different styles of communication apps, especially if you need to supplement or augment maybe for a short term. So definitely some things. I like this little kind of summary. Speech Language Kids has lots of great resources. I really like it. And then this one talked about, oh gosh, of course it's probably not going to come up on my Chrome. Hold on, no, 1 second. It probably won't let me do that. I want to add to Chrome. I can't add on this computer. 1 second. Okay, I need to try on my other computer. This one's an old computer, but it's easier to record on this one. Let me close it out. Great. 1 second. Oh, I can't ever minimize. That's the problem. This one. I have to hide so I can click on this. Great. All right, I'll go to the next one. And this one's older. I was trying to find a newer, more updated one. This one's a little bit older, but a lot of these are still the same ones that keep coming up. So these are probably some of the 10 top apps that we use. So I use this one quite a bit in articulation therapy, articulation station, and then our tick picks. The biggest positive to our tick picks is that it's only $30 versus $60. So there's some little bit differences of them, but I do really like both of these apps. I use them a lot, especially great for drill based, especially easy if you are a home health therapist, you're going from house to house and you're like, oh, I forgot, you know, Johnny's got to work on L's now. We're done with K and G. I don't have my L deck with me. The nice thing is that any sound you need access to, these are some of the great apps to use. And a lot of SLPs use it. And I also like sometimes for storing data. And on a couple of these, you can keep kind of video of them producing it, saying like a sentence, that kind of thing. So you kind of have that data stored. So I do like that. Conversation therapy, so that's a good one too. Keyword understanding. So those are great for a variety of disorders. A lot of them are built for autism, but many times a lot of these apps can be interchanged with other disorders. So even things, let's say you have somebody, you have a client with maybe cerebral palsy or just some other, you know, maybe possibly Down syndrome or fetal alcohol, something like that. A lot of these things that are built so-called for autism really kind of, you can use functionally within a variety of disorders. So there is some that I feel like the social skills keep improving. And then, yeah, word vault is good. There's some, you know, this one's really children and adults. So there's a couple of them that are really great for both. And some of these apps use what I would call real pictures, not so much cartoon or drawn graphics. It's more real pictures. And a lot of times, sometimes it's better, especially for our adults who need that image, that real image to help access that information. So I do like a lot of these can work for very, very young and very old. So that's nice about Word Vault. Flipbook, definitely, those are some great things in there. Speech tutor. So what's fun about this one, it actually shows the mouth, like inside of the mouth. The only thing I have to say is that I think it's sometimes hard for kind of that imagery for certain disorders. So your average Arctic kid can get it, but if they've got kind of multifaceted needs, sometimes that's a little bit more obscure for them. And so there's some great things. Like I said, this one's a little bit older version. It's a 2016, but a lot of them still are the same. They've just now got good updated versions. And now most of them are both in Google and in Apple. So that's a nice thing. I think a lot of these apps now are kind of more broad, so you can get them in either venue. There's lots of lists here, and then okay. Speech buddies. This isn't endorsing the use of speech buddies. But I do like this article. They have some good information on this website. So I like how they talk about using musical instruments also in addition to music. And when we're looking at kind of the broader disorders as far as fluency goes, so there's a lot of good research that supports the use of rhythm and kind of that music based for fluency, as well as apraxia. So there are some support that supports use of it in therapy from, you know, what I would call evidence-based. And when you think about fluency, is a lot about timing and pacing. So music's kind of a great avenue to work on that. And definitely looking at timing and coordination. So this is kind of just a little quick article about that. And kind of talks a little bit more about the neuroscience. So in this module, really, we have a lot of like small bits of information to kind of synthesize all together. So Yeah, a lot of times too, if any of you are drummers or have any kind of good percussion, I mean, I'm envious of you. Really, really have wanted to be good at music, but really didn't have that gene at all. But some other things too is how to modify just your games and things that you might use to support different language targets. And so I just like kind of, this is just, like I said, lots of little articles that are kind of helpful hints, things that support you when you're doing therapy with your clients. So yeah, so there's a lot of, there's not just one place for information, but the other thing too with just music is really working on the listening skills. So the other standpoint is even if you're playing music, having them act out some things to music, but really working on that listening skill is critical to support our clients' abilities. So definitely it's helpful to help kind of work on some other auxiliary skills than just speech and language. But even doing music things is, sorry, we're having a problem. 1 second, let me lock this door. My twins are pushing everybody to the limit tonight, so I apologize for that. Okay, so things like calming too. So sometimes we need to incorporate music to work on kind of those sensory based skills, like how do we get calm? How do we use music maybe to self-regulate? And then using music from a turn-taking social aspect is also really fun to do. So there's different ways. It's not always just to reinforce the skill, but and kind of when we look at same thing with apps, it's not so much to replace, but it's more to help them integrate and practice the skill. That's kind of the use of apps. I usually never want to solely just use apps in a session. Every now and then it's okay. But really focusing on that interaction piece is important for our clients. And we look at our adults too. What we don't want to do is we want to help them integrate and be social, especially if they've had some kind of aphasia or now have language and communication issues, or using, technology to help support that in some way. So just be mindful too when we do use apps and any kind of technology in therapy that we're still focusing on that personal piece. That's really it. So I went over all the assignments. You should be able to submit your grades. So hopefully everyone's getting ready for our semester. We've still got a few weeks to see, 16 weeks. So we got about another month, but you guys are doing good. We're almost to Thanksgiving already. Oh my gosh, that's just crazy. To me, I mean, it's just flying by. So everybody, I think the grades, I should almost be caught up. Tomorrow we have a day off. I should be able to get caught up. But if you're really concerned about a grade and I haven't given you one, or if you feel like there's a grade that's missing that you feel like you should, or whatever extra information I asked for you submitted, just remind me, and I try to go back and look at one. So if there's no grade and you feel like there should be, please check and see if I've written you something in the assignment, because I have left you messages if it's not, and every now and then I just miss one. So if you feel like, oh, she should have graded that, it was, 3 weeks ago and there's no grade, every now and then I just don't see it for whatever reason. So if you're concerned about any grade, please make sure you note that in the grade check. And after that, I appreciate you guys showing up. No, I forget, can't minimize in Zoom.